Now, there are hundreds of cases like this. And I think that because it's in the consciousness, because we have, you know, a poll saying basically half of the world believes and half doesn't, we're reaching a point where, as Stephen Bassett talks about his time clock, it's like the nuclear time clock that we had in the 50s before we blew the world, you know, before we blew the world up. The theory that once the hands got to midnight, that's when all the nuclear weapons in the world would be discharged. Well, we've stopped that nuclear clock, thankfully. But as far as the UFO clock, he says we're 1 minute to midnight now, meaning that in a minute to midnight, something really, really spectacular is going to happen. Now, whether that's a mass appearance, whether that is, you know, come over to the Yankee Stadium during a game, I think possibly the next, maybe even in the next 5 years, we're going to have occasions like the one I experienced in upstate New York in the mid-'80s when I woke up in the middle of the night and I said to my wife, they're calling me, I want to go outside, they want me to come outside and see. He said, who? Something outside wants me to come out and say, oh, just go back to bed. I went back to bed, but in the next day in the media, in newspapers, in radio, all over upstate New York and Ontario and Quebec and Vermont, people spoke about this urge they had to go out of their houses at 3 in the morning and look up into the sky. And 12,000 people shared this urge. And they went out and it was a big, big news story. And of course the Air Force said that a Chinese rocket had exploded over New York State. And what people saw was a massive, miles-high pink spiral in the sky above the Great Lakes. In Hull, Quebec, Canada, a few years afterwards, there was a story of several hundred people, almost 1,000 people, in this community, Gatineau, north of Hull, Quebec, Canada, in the Quebec province, sharing this urge to come outside and look up into the sky, and they also saw an apparition. So there are going to be more of these mass sightings. And, you know, the day that 1 million people in Idaho at a rock concert or something see it, that is when you're going to really get the conventional military and police sitting down to say, well, it's time to throw the Brookings Institution report out and lay it open to the people and let the people decide, you know, what must be done in conference with our state leaders.
Looks like you got an object right in front of you, Mark. Can you look out there? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Never mind. Are we missing something? I don't see anything. Yeah, we think the camera filter came off, Mark. It's about your 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock going away. Don't worry about it.
There have been so many celebrities, I mean, like people like David Bowie and John Denver, many people who have been interested in UFOs, but also in the idea of going into space. Would you train and go on the space shuttle yourself and conduct investigations into UFOs? And if you did that and you took an oath that stated that if you did discover something out there, that you would not share it with the American public. And if you knew you had captured on videotape actual UFOs from the space shuttle, would you break that oath and share the truth with the American public?
Well, you know, first of all, I'm claustrophobic, so I doubt I'll go up into space. But if I were to go up into space, I would have to say, look, you know, what we see up there and what we find, you know, we're just gonna have to throw out that law. There's a law.
According to NASA's Space Act, signed on July 29th, 1958, Section 102, Paragraph C, Subparagraph A, we read, information obtained or developed by the administrator in the performance of his functions under this Act shall be available for public inspection, except information authorized or required by federal statute to be withheld and information classified to protect the national security. Would NASA consider contact with an extraterrestrial civilization a threat to national security? And if they did, would they classify it to protect the national security?
So I would have to say, no, I couldn't agree to non-disclosure. I really couldn't if I saw something or photographed something. But I can see where other people, wanting to do the best for their country, wanting to serve their country in a legitimate way would say, yes, I will not disclose. And this is based on the Brookings Institution report from the late 50s, which, Congress commissioned, which said that if the existence of UFOs were revealed to the American populace would not be able to handle it. They would defy church authority, police authority, military authority, governmental authority. They wouldn't go to work. They would sort of cast aside the mayors and governors and presidents and go, we want to talk directly to these beings. We feel that these beings should, have their case put to us directly by them themselves. I think the American populace today is ready to handle the concept that what we live in, the 4 dimensions of height, length, width, and time, is not all there is. There are more dimensional realities. There are advanced beings with machines that can skip from dimension to dimension, from galaxy to galaxy, using the Einstein-Rosen bridges, the wormholes. I think the American people, I think half of them know, and I think the other half, with the proper evidence, would be ready to accept it. It's going to take a mass sighting for the U.S. government to finally say, look, we're going to come on side with France, Belgium, Mexico, Turkey, Iran, and we're going to tell the truth, and we're going to reveal what happened to Tom Mantell when he went up in his P-51, what happened in the Great Lakes when I believe it was an F-104, I believe, was scrambled over the Great Lakes in the 60s. What happened to him? I think that if you have that type of sighting, then there'll be no choice.
Interdimensional travel. I mean, not just traveling through our dimension, but going into alternate dimensions, Dan. Would you, and if you could, a spaceship arrives in your yard, and you've got the barbecue out, and there's the steak on the grill, and they want you right now to come with them and go into another dimension, and to move forward and backwards on the timeline, to go forward in time and backward in time. If you could move forward and backward in time, are there any events in human history that you would interfere with, that you would change to alter the destiny and the course of humanity?
Well, I wouldn't want to go back in time and change anything, because that would be a tampering that I wouldn't serve mankind well. Although there are many horrors, of course. Wouldn't you have loved to have caught Hitler as a 15-year-old and have him drown in a river? Because then we could have solved the Holocaust problem, and then World War II may not have... Well, look, there were 2 guys. There was Otto Dinkel. You ever heard of him? Well, he was an orator hired by the German army, just like Hitler was, to speak. If Hitler died, maybe Otto Dinkel would have been the guy that would have gone on with this rabid anti-Semitism and wiped out 9 million people. Of course one thinks of those things, but you don't want to go back in time and play with events, because where we've come to today and the improvements we've made in human rights and in regarding ourselves as sacred, they've come because of the bad things that have happened. Now, if I went into the future, I would want to see where this planet is 300 years from now. Did we make it? Did we make it? That's what I would like to know.
I mean that from my knowledge of the world that I see around me, I think that it is much more likely that the reports of flying saucers are the result of the known irrational characteristics of terrestrial intelligence rather than the unknown rational efforts of extraterrestrial intelligence.
Interdimensionality, again, if you could move forward and backward in time and meet any personality, any public figure, celebrity, or politician, or mystical figure, is there anybody that you would like to sit down with? If you could have lunch with them, or just sit down and talk to them and have a discussion, forward and backward in time?
Oh, I'd love to spend an afternoon with Richard Feynman. Would love to sit down with Heisenberg and